Yeah, it is. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that the regular meeting commence at the hour of 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that Council acknowledges that we are meeting in the Robinson's Barrier Treaty area on lands that have been traditionally used by several Indigenous nations. But we would like to pay special recognition to our closest Indigenous neighbours, the communities of Bitagong, Nishnabeg, and Pic-Mobert First Nation. We wish to recognize the long history of the First Nations and Métis people in our region specifically and show respect to them today. All in favour? Call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, thank you. Moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that the agenda be approved as circulated. All in favour? There are no delegations or presentations. Therefore, we'll move to the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of March the 11th, 2020 are adopted as circulated. All in favour? There are no petitions, so we move to correspondence. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that correspondence item 0801 to 0802 be received. Are there any that like to be brought down?
Yes, the Well-Being Investment Fund. Nuclear waste.
The nuclear waste, okay, thank you. 0801. And be it further resolved that agenda item 0801 be returned to Council under business for the meeting of March 25th, 2020. All in favour? There are no reports or for committees, and I do not have a verbal report, but our CAO has one. So.
Acting CEO. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council, tonight mostly my update is related to COVID-19 and what we've been doing as a community. COVID-19 has been the main focus of municipal operations since the last council meeting on March 11th, when I advised council that we were monitoring the situation. Things have changed greatly since that day. March 13th, we closed all of our recreation facilities and placed those facilities on care and maintenance. March 17th, we started having regular management meetings to ensure municipal services remained open and operational. We're having 3 provincial emergency operations center conference calls a week, a number of daily emails, and other social media to sort through. Daily monitoring, and we use 3 information sources to gauge our operation and base our decisions on. So the first is the Ontario.ca COVID-19 website. We look there for direction. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit's website, and our Santé Manitouwadge Health CEO, Debbie Hardy. So those are the information sources that we've identified that we take our information and base our decisions on. Social media, we've spoke with the hospital CEO and decided who would do what kind of information. So the township is doing operational and general information for the community on municipal operations and things of that nature. And we're leaving medical care and services information up to the hospital. So that people can check the Santé Manitouwadge Health website for medical information, and they're maintaining those links and make sure it stays current. And we'll have the municipal operations and township information on the Manitouwadge website, and we've also put the hospital link up on ours so people can make an easy transition back and forth between those information sources. The fire department has been placed on continuity of operations plan to ensure emergency response. So we've done such things as restricted access to the fire hall to members only. We've restricted our Thursday night training meetings, and will not be doing any public education or social gathering type events that we normally do. Strictly emergency response operations at this time. Public Works, we reviewed the continuity of operation plan for Public Works with a focus on garbage pickup, snow plowing and roads, and water and sewer. We have waived tipping fees at the landfill site. We had meetings with our staff. They felt it was a health and safety concern. We looked at the revenues and the amount of traffic right now, so not to be handling the extra tickets and all the process for them, as we do have limited hand washing at facilities at the landfill site. We still have the landfill site open twice a week, and we'll continue that operation that way for now. We've been in contact with Aqua Clean Water Agency, the operator of our water and sewer systems, to make sure that they have continuity operations plans in place. Reviewed those plans with Public Works and myself, and to make sure that they can continue operations for water and sewer if the situation gets worse. We reviewed the operation of the municipal office, as well as review an amended procedural process for council so that we could conduct this meeting as we are tonight with live streaming and no public in attendance. There has been legislation passed by the province on this week as well, and Jolene has been working on sorting that out in the process, and possibly with the future, if it's necessary, to move to virtual council meetings where we would do web-based council meetings. So we are looking at those options and the legislation around those endeavors. We've met with all employees, union and non-union staff for the municipality. Let them know that we need their service at times like this. We don't plan to change the operation much, and that we've put together a general question and answer. So if they have questions, we've tasked Florence with that. They get the questions to her. She gets the answer together, and we'll keep an ongoing list, because if questions are coming up repeatedly, we'll have that information readily available for all of our staff. We're constantly reviewing right now HR concerns and legislation changes and trying to provide guidance to our staff on those issues. The government has been almost issuing new stuff weekly or daily in the last week, and it's taking a lot to keep abreast of all those changes. We've reviewed cleaning of the municipal office and increased cleaning of the touch points and washrooms in this building, and as well as 40 Manitou, where we're the owner and we maintain tenants such as Service Ontario and the insurance that are continuing to operate. So we'll make sure those facilities are dealt and sanitized with properly as well. The airport building has been closed to the public. This is to keep the public away from the medical flight staff, maintain the physical distancing that we're expected right now, and I think it's important that we do that for that service stays in place and those pilots don't get jeopardized by just having public around the building. We conducted a local business webinar. There was Debbie Hardy at the hospital. We recommended we do this. We thought it was a great idea. Florence organized the community, got the stuff together, and we did it Tuesday afternoon. We did this to support their efforts in providing service to the community and gained good feedback from the businesses. I think the conference was well received, and we will be doing that weekly on Tuesdays until this matter is resolved. We did get feedback from the businesses, and first I'd like to recognize the business, the job that they're doing for this community. It's been exceptional. All the retail outlets in this town are continuing to operate and making sure that we get the supplies and resources we need, extra effort, extra staff, and maintaining physical distancing in the shops. It's very impressive and to be commended for all of them. The message that they have for us to give the public, at this time, shopping is not a social event. Get in, get what you need, leave. They're restricting numbers in the store. They can only let so many people in the store at a time. So please get in, do your shopping. It's not a family affair right now. Send one individual per family to do the shopping. If you bring 2 or 3 shopping at one time, that restricts the number of people that can be in the store shopping, and other people having to stand outside or in the weather or be exposed. So they're asking that you reduce the number of people that you bring and get the stuff you need and get out. They're working hard to provide us services, and if you don't follow, if the community doesn't follow the social distancing or the physical distancing, you're jeopardizing their operations. If their staff gets sick or have to close the store because of a COVID incident, that'll penalize the whole community. So we took that message. We're going to be including that in our social messaging and social media that we're putting out, and just ask for the community's support and recognize the good effort that all of our businesses are putting forward on all of our behalf. Economic development. There's been a lot of stimulus release in the last few days. So Florence has been tracking that, trying to look how it applies to our local businesses and getting ready to provide that information to them. We've had some businesses that have closed their doors temporarily, we hope. But if there's assistance available for that, those businesses, we want to be able to work with them and make sure they know where to go to get the support that's available to them. We are trying to keep the municipal office open. We recognize the businesses are doing it for us. We're trying to support them. We encourage the public to phone or email into the office. We will find a way to get you the service you need. If you phone in, if it's something that physically has to come here, we will do that. But if we could find another way, and I've been talking with the acting treasurer, and he's been very supportive of trying to work with the public and get them a way to do business with us that they need to get done. So we will try and keep that channel going. This is a health emergency affecting all of Ontario and the world. As of 10 a.m. this morning, there was no cases reported in the Thunder Bay District by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit. That's encouraging, and we'd like to see it stay that way. We haven't used Code Red yet through this event. It's a little bit different with a health emergency. It's not like having a pending forest fire on your back door that's coming down. But we do recognize that since we first put Code Red in, we do have a number of new residents in the community. So next week, we're going to look at maybe doing some testing, especially for the new residents that have never experienced the use of Code Red, and just as a refresher for all our residents. The other item we're considering doing and looking at right now is doing some live streaming, where we could quite simply come here and put a live stream out at a planned time for the community and provide more information to the community, and hopefully get some feedback on if there's any additional information that they're looking for from us. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Now, are there any questions?
Through the chair, yes. In regards to the airport, who is in charge of the cleaning out there? Is it the contractor that does this building, or is it the staff that works there?
It's our own staff.
Okay.
And because it's just the pilots and our staff using the facilities,
Yeah.
we've agreed that we can handle that on our end
Okay.
and make sure that's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'm just curious, has the staff had the opportunity to work from home if they can, if it is possible in their job? And the other issue was the public coming to the office. Has that been considered to be closed? Just a couple of things I'd like to throw out there.
Certainly. Question one, has staff working from home? On the Tuesday, the 17th, when we started this program, we made that offer that day.
Okay.
If you have a job that you can do from home, the bylaw officer right now is actually working from home. He has his laptop at home. We're forwarding him the phone calls and the inquiries that come into him. And we're actually reviewing some bylaws right now, which is a good time for him to have quiet time and sit and concentrate on that. So he's doing that as the only one so far. We're starting to experience daycare concerns from some of our staff. And we're going to have a meeting with a few of them in the morning and see what we can do and how we can work around that with them. Certainly trying to accommodate and support their families as well while we're trying to work through this. So we will do that. Keeping this office open was a second part of your question,
yes.
If I'm correct, Councillor Moffat. We've been reviewing very close. We have our receptionist at our front desk, who is our frontline staff, and kind of our barometer to guess what's going, or assess what's going on with the operation. We're checking with her daily. We're also recording the number of traffic, amount of traffic coming into the building daily, and our numbers have greatly decreased just because people are being aware and trying to find alternate methods of getting service. So that has been working, and at this time, we haven't made the decision to close the door. That may come, but I don't think we're there right now. As long as our staff feels comfortable, we can keep the level of cleaning up and we'll try and maintain that. The new wall and system we put downstairs has really been a big plus, and we're really grateful for it this week without having that in place. So it's been a big help with this situation.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2017-15 to govern the proceedings of the council, the calling of meetings and pertaining to the conduct of its members be held a first and second time.
As we mentioned in the report, we've reviewed the legislation. The province has enacted some new legislation, the Emergency Management 2020 Act, which gives us a relief from a bunch of these being able to do what we're doing tonight and the virtual meetings. So Jolene's been checking, the legislation is in place, and prepared a bylaw, temporary procedural bylaw right there.
This would be an amendment, excuse me, to our current procedural bylaw. So going forward, this would be in our current bylaw.
And a permanent change.
And a permanent change in the event that there's ever an emergency again down the road.
Are there any questions on the bylaw?
No.
And further be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2020-10. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Hudson, being a bylaw to adopt an acting pay policy, be read a first and second time.
Okay, Council, we've talked about this a couple times as of late, and at the last Council meeting, we advised Council that we would be bringing a draft policy back for their consideration and review. Jolene has put this together. Both Treasurer and I have looked at the policy and in application, make sure it's applicable across the board and workable. And we believe that a workable policy has been presented to Council.
Are there any questions on that bylaw?
My only concern about the bylaw is I'm feeling that the amount being presented here is a little on the high side as far as the taxpayers are concerned. That is my only concern. Other than that, I like the way it's set up.
Through the chair, there are two things. Point 4, I think it's too much to ask of the taxpayer. I honestly do. It's just too high amount. Point 5, transition period. When someone comes on, I always assume there's a bit of a training requirement to get them to move into the job, and I understand it. It's worded as compensation to assist the incumbent. 4-week period. Now, I guess that depends on who you're hiring, how much of a transition, but I would prefer to call it a training position. If the person is highly qualified, they may not need any training at all. They may need a day to meet with the last person in the position just to see what's going on. what's been done, what hasn't been done, that sort of thing. So the difference is, I think it should be all about training. And depending on the person's expertise, there may not be much need for training. If there has to be a week of, a week of training, then I would agree to a week of compensation. But it would, this whole section, to me, should be training requirement. If it's required, it has to be assessed, the new person coming in. So those are my 2 points. So I disagree with the amount. I think it's too much to ask for the taxpayer, and I disagree with transition. Those are my points.
Councillor, do you have any?
I agree. I think it's a little bit much to ask for as well. I believe we could come to a better number, potentially.
Through the chair, my question would be to my fellow councillors, what would be a better number? You all seem to disagree with it, and I'm just curious what your counter to it would be.
Through the chair, I have a proposal that's going to council next council meeting that actually has numbers attached to it. That's just a motion that I put forward. That doesn't mean other councillors can't put their own motions forward. But if it's a number...
Through the chair, we're having the general discussion tonight, Councillor.
Yeah.
And it would be appropriate at this time if you wanted to put that on the table.
Yeah, like you can make that proposal right now.
Oh.
Well,
Yes.
This is only a draft policy,
Yeah.
Council, and you're welcome to amend or adjust and vote on as you see fit.
Oh, okay. I don't have it in front of me. I do recall that my suggestion would be, first off, for the first 2 weeks of acting, there would be no expectation of remuneration. From the 2 weeks to 6 months, my suggestion was 10 hours straight time per week, in addition to the acting position's regular pay. That at 6 months there probably should be an assessment or something, I don't know if that's the right word, whether that position is going to be continued or not. Because at some point you can act for so long, there's got to be an end game or a reassessment done at 6 months. So it was from 2 weeks to 6 months, 10 hours straight time was, and I did not in my submission talk about a transition period. It was just in relation to point 4, the dollar amount. And again, I think the transition period should be more of a necessary training period. Maybe necessary for a day, maybe necessary for a week, depending on who you're hiring. Some people with a lot of experience just slide right into a job. All they need to know is what's going on, what's not going on. So that's my point on that one.
Through the chair, my thoughts on it would be to be, like I like the way it's set out now with the, what is it, 3 weeks?
Yes.
3 weeks at the beginning. Now, to me, that 3 weeks, once you get that period done and the acting takes place, then I think that 3 weeks should be put on the end. Once the person comes on, then yes, the pay continues for the 3 weeks to make up for it. So so the time frame is the same. You don't get it at the beginning, but you get the same amount at the end. And as far as the amount to pay, I would be more comfortable with a 10 or 12 hours at straight time, which would be roughly 25 to 30% of the person's wage.
What is, through the chair, what is the average hours of work that take place throughout the township?
Their office hours are scheduled for 35 a week. I'm sure you drive by and see the lights on in lots of offices, a lot more than that. Our staff is very generous and supportive. It varies. You can have problems and call-outs and stuff, and it varies by job a little bit too. Let's face it, Public Works is really boots on the ground and coverage. Even fire chief is coverage to be available and to be there. So there is differences to the jobs, and part of it is, tonight we're out doing over and above again the regular hours and things like that. So depending on the nature of the job, and one of the things about acting pay in Manitouwadge is you don't shed your other jobs when you're taking on all these other roles. You're doing that work plus more. And I've been through it now a number of times, and there's leg catching up after all this is over for 6 months or a year, and we've experienced those a number of times, that it can take a while to get your own work back in the thing and get it up to where you want it. The transition period, even today, we've exceeded a month that the new Public Works fellow has been here, and he's a very competent and skilled individual, but there's projects, ongoing systems. So I agree with training. Some people come in and need very little training, but it's not only that, it's you're working on your stuff now, and they want to have time and meetings and stuff to look at the projects, budget, what's going on, how come this, what about that piece of equipment. So it can be take a month to shed that, your entanglement in that department, if it's been a long-term acting position, not for a short term, but a long term. Something like Councillor Moffat tabled is very reasonable and probably very workable in that light.
Thank you.
So the discussion we're having basically is about the additional 12 hours at 1.5 rate, right? Is that what
I would like to see that brought to 12 hours at regular rate. That would be how I would like to see it changed, just to give a little less for the taxpayer to pay out. And I appreciate the extra time that everybody puts in the acting positions. And a salaried employee, is a very, very tough position, to do. And myself, I had at one time been in a salaried position, and I know what you're saying. You do the work until the work's done, period. And that's still how I work today, but being self-employed is different. But we have to remember that there's taxpayers that are flipping this bill. So that's where we got to find a fine line between, what is offered and what would be acceptable. Because at any position, I believe at any position now, 12 hours regular pay would be a large increase over the existing bylaw that exists right now.
If the person was making $30 an hour,
right,
and we gave them straight time, it would be $300.
$360.
If you did 12 hours. I thought you said 10 hours.
No, it says 12.
Okay, so that would be 360.
Correct, which is higher than the existing.
If we took that time and a half number, it's 540. If
Correct.
you're making 30 and you're going to pay them time and a half for 12 hours, it's $540.
Correct.
So the difference between the 360 and 540
is what I'm saying.
Okay,
yeah.
Just so you know the numbers and how it plays out.
I guess the question I'm asking is, this person at a management position, is their time 37.5 or 40 hours?
It doesn't matter.
It depends on, like, the Public Works manager and them that on-call stuff. We do pay them but they don't get any other overtime. That's their annual allotment, and you've never paid them your salary employees, like Councillor Moffat says.
Yeah.
They get that. They're up to 3 meetings a week. It doesn't change at the end of the week. They've attended those 3 meetings, and that's why they get those extra hours on an ongoing basis.
No, the reason I asked, I guess I'm presuming if you're an hourly wage worker and you pay after 40 hours, don't you get time and a half?
Okay. I can understand what Council's saying. If you look at this hour by hour, you're going to struggle. People are taking on, doing more even during their normal work week and just bulldozing through, whether it's missing lunch or staying late or doing whatever, and taking on all that extra assignment. And in lots of cases, you're saving 100% of the person's wages. And, I just did it for 6 months or more at Public Works, and it was 2 persons' wages. Because you didn't have a supervisor or a superintendent.
Yeah.
And the other caution I have, and the old bylaw caused you that problem.
Correct.
If it's not attractive enough, people will say no. So I know you have the decision to make, and I respect your comment about the taxpayers, but I think there's a lot to look at here. And if you just look at it by the hour.
Through the chair, it's a long-term thing is what we're kind of looking at. A lot of the times these acting positions go into the long term.
Yes.
And there's going to be a number at the end of that we have to answer to as a council.
Yes.
And that is our biggest concern at this time. That is my biggest concern at this time, that there's going to be numbers that come forward at the end of the year that we're going to have a hard time answering to.
Yes.
So that is...
I know we all have that accountability, Council, and I can appreciate that.
I mean, we appreciate the work that takes place here. I mean, you guys do go above and beyond, and that's great, and especially with this COVID-19 stuff going on. It's a lot to take in, but it's the overall number that I fear that we have to look at. And by putting forth a respectable bylaw, I think we can accomplish that.
Through the chair, just on some of the concerns that have been brought up, I agree with Councillor Moffat's the point number 3, the 3 weeks, taking that and putting that as your transition, but maybe changing the phrasing on point 5 as transition period to either training period or transition/training period, just small changes in the wording, because like you said, if the person is highly qualified, they only might need a short amount of time of training, but there is things that they need to get caught up on that might come up a little bit into it that, a project they weren't aware of or what have you. So maybe some wording can be changed on that as well.
Okay, so do you want to try this tonight, or we can take these points back? Because it's going to take to get the proper verbiage. I understand exactly what you're saying, Councillor, about the 3 week and that, to get that down on paper proper to you.
Yep.
And then that would also give all the council, I think we could do this by the next meeting.
Okay.
If I could ask the clerk, I don't want to commit her to something. Yeah, so we could bring this back to the next meeting with those changes in, and we'll work on the wording and make sure it flows what you're looking after here, and then come back with those other things. And then that will give Councillor Orwell to think about the compensation package and the points that were all raised tonight on the table.
Perfect.
So through the chair, I just have a couple of more points. I just want to go back, and I appreciate all the comments. The reason I was thinking of no remuneration expected for 2 weeks is to fill in, someone's gone on vacation, and I've got a lot of experience in acting manager positions in the past, and it was to gain experience. That's pretty much what it was. That's why I was suggesting 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you do get compensation. And I did run some numbers. In comparison, the bylaw that's in place right now, I thought was pretty good. But I did run some numbers with 10 hours regular time, and it appeared quite generous to me, quite generous. So yes, I appreciate all the hard work everybody's doing, but I do think 10 hours is quite generous. was something else I was going to say. Again, the transition period. If it's required training, I believe in that. If it's not, I don't see the point of transition. The idea is to bring that person into that job. And it could be different for every employee. It should be about training that person into the new position, in my view. And that's my last point.
Through the chair, just to clarify something, Councillor Arola, is the 3 weeks that I was saying at the beginning, to be bumped that to the end. This way here, the person that's filling the position gets paid for the same time frame that they did the position. So by moving it at the end, they're doing the position and training the person at the same time through that last 3 weeks, let's say.
Yeah, it's a slight
so
difference.
That's whether it takes a week of training, 2 days, or a month and a half. It's almost like a flat rate. They get 3 weeks. That's kind of how I envision it.
I appreciate that.
So through the chair, section 4.1, when it talks about the 12 hours, would it be potential that we could base the hours on the averaging of hours throughout the week? Is that some way we could word that in there? Is that something that you guys would even consider? So someone who works, say, 7 hours a day throughout the week, 5 days a week, they would get paid 7 hours, as opposed to someone who maybe works 10 to 12 hours every day would get paid 10 to 12 hours. As an idea.
That's assuming that person is only going to be doing the replacement job. They're not going to be doing their own job, which is 7 hours now, and then an additional job.
Yeah, so in a day there's only so many hours somebody can work. So depending on how many hats you put on, it will not change the amount of time you put into that job.
I can beg
that's different.
with you, Councillor.
Yeah.
I can beg. I've been through this since 2016, off and on, consistently, and evenings, Saturdays, and whatever. All the staff in this building, and this week is a prime example of the effort they put in.
I'm not.
No, and if you only, if you can only look at it through the chair, if you only look at it at the hours, and don't look at them taking on that extra role and what they're doing, and it's only about time and time only, I think you're going to find that you're going to shortchange yourself.
So through the chair, I'm not just talking about time. I do understand, and I understand fully that when you take on an acting position, you are definitely going to do above and beyond what you regularly would do. All I'm suggesting is that whatever the case may be for the time that you're doing it, put that forward. As in, if you're putting in 12-hour days, that's what you'd be getting compensated for. As in, if you would be putting in 10-hour days, that's what you'd be compensated for. As opposed to someone who's putting in a 6-hour day or a 4-hour day.
I just think if you look at it on a one-to-one basis, you're going to shortchange yourself.
Okay.
So you're suggesting that we could reword this that says if a person takes over an acting position as well as their own, and they are able to get it done in 7 hours, then it's standard. That's what they get paid for anyway, right? So they wouldn't get anything for the acting pay.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that instead of getting paid an additional 12 hours per week at their present hourly rate, they would be getting an additional 7 hours. For an example, if you worked 7 hours. If you worked 7 hours for a year, and all of a sudden you take over an acting position, now you might be putting in 8 hours or 9 hours, or whatever the amount of hours you might be putting in. Would you still not base that on your annual type?
What you're proposing right now, Councillor, if we go back to the $30 number that I talked about, you're $10 more than your present bylaw.
Go at the
You're $210.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's been the general consensus that that's not working well for you.
Yeah. Through the chair, based on the 12 hours that I'm suggesting, that means a person averages working 2.4 extra hours per day.
Which would probably make sense on a
Yeah,
10-hour
on an
work week,
average
right?
work week, if someone's filling in, if they're working 2.4 hours extra per day, that is what I'm proposing at the 12 hours of regular pay. That's the way I'd like to see it written, is the same as what he's saying, to simplify everything, but 12 hours straight pay.
Okay.
That's,
Through the chair, I would, I'd agree to 12 hours straight pay.
Okay, so if I could just recap, so I could bring this back to you properly. We'll rework the starting period for the 3-week window that we talked about. We will adjust 4.1 to the 10 hours of straight time as,
12 hours.
pardon me, 12 hours? Okay.
12 hours straight
12
time.
hours, okay. And then we would reword that transition period, if you would, so the 3-week window that we talked about would fall at that end and cover that clause off.
right.
So
from the
we'll
start to
rework
the
that
end.
wording and bring it back to council at the next meeting.
Okay.
I'm great with that.
I'm
yeah.
good with that.
Thank you.
So that's going on with that. What do I do with this? I guess it's to be brought forward. Next item. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that Council is in receipt of Administration Report CS 2020-01, submitted by Shelley Ferguson, Director of Community Services, regarding flooring replacement at the golf cart. And be it for, okay, then we'll discuss.
So I'm presenting Shelley's report tonight on the intent of maintaining our social distancing. So if I may, last year in the budget, they provided for new appliances in the kitchen at the golf course building. So we've purchased those appliances and stuff, and through the winter we tore the floor up and took the appliances out to get a look. And now we should be replacing the floor before we put all the new appliances back in. We had a look at it. So what the request is for a $10,000 of budget from this year's revenue fund to cover changing. So it would be the kitchen, food cooking area, and the bar counter area in the front to change that flooring in the building, and with an estimate of $10,000 total for material and labor to install the flooring.
Okay, through the chair. I read that whole thing, and $10,000 for 600 square feet, it seems like a little steep to me. I mean, what is that kind of floor, like commercial flooring, et cetera? Like I said, I just find that, a little steep of a number for 600 square feet. And also another thing is I didn't notice if any proposals were sent out to local business people.
We contacted one local contractor that does that type of work, and he wasn't interested in bidding at this time.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And we did request 5 bids,
Yeah,
and that amount is the low bidder on the project.
but what I'm asking is, what's the type of flooring that's
It's
being
a
put in?
commercial kitchen safety flooring, I guess, so you're not slipping on grease on the floor and things like that.
Okay, so it is.
It's a proper
specialized.
commission grade, a kitchen grade commercial flooring.
Okay, so a lot of this price is in the material, is
Yes,
what I'm
it's the
getting at.
material
Okay,
itself,
thank
yes,
you.
yes.
Yeah.
I had through the chair, the same kind of question. It would help in future maybe if when we're looking at quotes, we can see how that breaks down, just for the future, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Because I thought this exact same thing, that's an awful lot for 600 square feet.
Any further questions?
Actually, I do have a further question through the chair. In the accessibility implications part of it, it refers to making the building AODA compliant. And at this time, I know it says they're going to look into funding opportunities, but what is it they're looking to do?
I'm not aware at
Okay.
the time. And when I read that, I seen that the statement was in there. For this particular report itself,
It's not
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 pertinent to
applicable.
it,
Yes,
right?
we're not changing the flooring, isn't going to change accessibility
Okay.
for this particular project, so.
Okay, I just kind of wondered. Okay.
Okay.
And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of the council's review and consideration, direct staff as follows. Council gives pre-budget approval for the amount of $10,000 for the purchase and installation of safety flooring in the clubhouse kitchen and bar area. All in favor? And the next one is the correspondence from NWMO. You wanted to discuss it, Council?
Oh, yes, sorry, I did have a question. It was $700,000 for the community,
Well-being fund.
right. And I was just wondering what's the plan for that money, if there's going to be council involvement in seeing how that is spent over the next number of years, or is there any plan for?
There's the criteria.
Through the chair. Certainly, we've received the $700,000 now. It was deposited in our bank this week, I believe. And what we did is we have the established community well-being fund, and NWMO, when we originally put that fund together, kind of set the criteria. So we'll bring that back to council for your review, and certainly any expenditure of that money is totally by council approval.
Okay.
So it all comes from.
Thank
from
you very
council.
much. Thank you.
Just as, sorry, through the chair, just as all the other amounts given over the past few years
Yes.
was either, one project or multiple projects.
There are no motions or notice of motions, so we'll go into closed session. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Whereas Section 239(4) of the Municipal Act, 2001 SO 2001 C25, provides that before holding a meeting or part of a meeting that is to be closed to the public, the municipality or local board or committee of either of them shall state by resolution the fact of holding of the closed meeting and the general nature of the matter to be considered at the closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that this meeting is hereby closed to the public as the subject matter being discussed falls under the following section. Section 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the community, the municipality or local board. 22-24 Huron Walk insurance claim. All in favor?
Do we have to go upstairs, or can we just shut the camera?
If you're comfortable.